If we turn to cost, this is one of the main reasons companies came before, but it's still a reason now. So in Spain, in the IT, for example, this is a report conducted by IDC based on pay scale on last year. We are between 20 to 50% cheaper than in other Western or Northern European economies. We are between 10 to 25, 10 to 30% more expensive than Eastern European countries. So unfortunately, I don't have data from 2008 from the States, but the margin is still big. I mean, last week talking to Softec, for example, one of the providers giving services to GA, both here in, both in Mexico to the North American activities and in Spain for the European activities. They say that for them, Spain is around 25% more expensive than Mexico. So what's important here with these prices is the sustainability of them. In Spain, wage inflation is really linked to general inflation rates, so these rates are to be stable in the near future, as they have been stable in the past. So this is something that's not happening in every country in Europe. So being part of the European Union makes a stand here. And especially for big and long projects focusing on R&D, it's important not just the sustainability, but the predictability. I mean, knowing how much will the project cost in the long term is also an advantage. We spoke before, or my colleagues spoke before about technology parks. This is the map of the current 80 technology parks in Spain. As you can see in the graph on the left, most of these parks, or the highest amount of companies in this park, belong to the ICT area. So although there are some of them, like the one in Malaga, or a couple of them in Madrid, Barcelona, the one in Huesca, or the one in Orense, they are focusing a lot on ICT, but it's still possible to find companies almost anywhere in the country. So any company moving to Spain or analyzing Spain, they should analyze where companies on their specific sector or the specific activities are going, because there are some parks with very interesting synergies, or offering very interesting synergies with companies, both Spanish and multinational. So whenever we speak about infrastructures, Spain is a modern economy, so it's a bit, I mean, it says not much if we speak about the availability of them. From our point of view, it's much more interesting to know how companies or how individuals are using it. So, I mean, normally they ask us if there is availability of certain specific technologies in an area. So, I mean, any company won't have any problem in finding the technology they need anywhere in the country. So, for example, in spite of being Spain a country that came a bit late to this technology arena, we are pushing really, really strong. So, for example, in terms of the adoption of broadband by companies, we are the first one in Europe with Malta and France. And on the right side, you have the adoption of technology depending on the size of the company. So big companies are for sure very modern in Spain, but there is still a big opportunity for companies focusing on small and medium-sized companies, as they don't have still got to the point where availability of this infrastructure is 100%. So the same applies whenever we speak about the information society. For example, broadband in Spain has had a huge growth in the last 4 years. We are now speaking of 10.3 million lines in Spain of broadband. And which is important here is not just the fixed broadband, but the mobile broadband in Spain. We have over 1.2 million users, which is the highest in Europe by far, and it's one of the highest in the world. So very, very interesting activities and very interesting opportunities here. So in this sector in particular, the main help or the main incentive plan comes from the Plan Avanza 2. It's Plan Avanza 2 because the last 4 years we had the Plan Avanza 1 running. So the main aim of the Plan Avanza, or the initial plan, was to provide enough infrastructures to the country for the companies to use. So now that phase is over, and now the phase is focusing on the services running on these infrastructures. So although there are, as you see there is one line focusing on infrastructure, but those are focusing mainly on digital terrestrial television and on expanding rural broadband. But the next ones are focusing on getting some specific sectors, some SMEs, to buy technology. So this is very important to know for companies providing these services, because they need to know that the companies buying their services can get very interesting aids from the government. There are also a lot of aids aiming at training both SMEs and citizens. And within this training, we include all the plans, certification plans, or ITL, they are all included in this area. There is also a big push to the confidence, security, and accessibility. Spain is behind Europe in terms of electronic commerce. We are growing very, very strong, but we are still behind. So one of the reasons the government thought to us was the lack of confidence. So they are focusing, a lot of companies focusing on security and on confidence. And digital public services. In Spain, we have over 13 million people with a digital ID card. So every single company with more than 1,000 employees needs to have a digital or online channel to communicate with its clients. So there is, the government is pushing a lot the use of these digital services. So there are around, the government has around around 600 services already running. Local, local administrations, they have around 400, and banks, for example, they are jumping in these online services. So at the investment center, we strive to find which activities offer the best opportunities for foreign investors. So in ICT, we have been focusing on this for the last years, although we keep adding new ones. So we see a lot of opportunities in, for example, in the nearshore arena, so using Spain as the hub to get to European clients. We are seeing this a lot. We are seeing a lot of American companies doing this, and we are seeing a lot of Asian companies trying to do this, leveraging their costs in their home countries and having some parts of the value chain in Spain. We are seeing a lot of push in the digital terrestrial television. We are shutting down analog emissions in April next year. We have now a new model also for paid digital terrestrial television. So a lot of companies are moving here. We expect to have a lot of movement here in the services through the digital television services coming, this digital television terrestrial television coming in 1-2 years. As I said, in the mobile arena, we do have great opportunities. Companies, as all of you may know, Telefonica, I mean, they are attracting huge amount of programmers, huge amount of companies developing services for the mobile industry. We are seeing a lot of areas not tapped by the Spanish companies, for example, machine-to-machine communications, and they open very interesting opportunities for companies doing this in other countries. WiMAX, as I said before, I mean, we are now supporting the provision of rural broadband, so WiMAX was one of the technologies chosen for this area. In voice over IP, there was a big push a couple of years ago, a lot of call centers opening and closing. Now, there is still an opportunity, but not as big as a couple of years ago. I said electronic ID, now every single person getting an ID in Spain now, they are getting a digital ID. So this opens up a very interesting opportunities. Smart home, now with the decrease in the building activity, some companies are looking to differentiate their buildings from others, so they are investing heavily in a smart house and smart home or domotics. Digital cinema is not that strong now, but e-health and digital entertainment and video games, they are two of the main drivers now, main of the main pushers of the industry. In e-health, we are seeing a lot of activity, not just in providing software for hospitals, that also, but we are seeing a lot of activities in those companies focusing on treating patients from home. So there are some areas in Spain, like Valencia, for example, that are focusing a lot on bringing companies giving these services. So I said, I mean, any question or any interest in these areas, we can provide you with very interesting reports on how your company can profit from these opportunities. So I know I have given quite a lot of facts in this last 20 minutes, so I would be glad if you could just remember these 6 bullets. So in this sector, we have a very attractive market and dynamic. The growth expectancy is interesting. Human resources are there, and they are qualified, and they are very successful. There is a very interesting value-cost alignment. We are not the cheapest, but the value we provide for the price we get is very interesting. Infrastructure are there, and there is a strong government support for any activity in this arena. So thank you very much, and we welcome any questions afterwards.